Good morning, Eddie Capparucci.
Good morning, Tammy, and welcome everyone. Welcome to Getting to the Other Side, helping couples navigate the road to recovery. Again, this program is designed to help men who are struggling with sexual addiction as well as their partners who are dealing with betrayal, navigate that road to recovery and bring them to a place that offers healing, forgiveness, hope, and giving us a sense of a new beginning. So just a moment ago, before we started the show, we were talking about the book Going Deeper, and I was going to tell Tammy, yes, I'm in the midst of, and about a third way through, the next book, which is Going Even Deeper, and the subtitle of that, if I can recall it off the top of my head, is The Need to Go Beyond the Addiction. And that's what we're looking at, to try to look at all those, what I call the blind spots that men have because of the traumas or neglect that happened in childhood. And therefore, looking, and what we really call it is arrested emotional development. And the fact that, you know what, our brains aren't the same as other people who are, raised in a secure environment. So anyway, just want to let you know that's there and
I
coming
love
out.
that. So do you have any, I know this is like premature, but do you have an anticipated publishing date?
No, because I'm in the midst of doing 3 projects at the same time. So what
Oh,
I do,
color me surprised. So,
so what I'm doing is I jump one day, I'm working on the book. The next day I'm working on a graduate program, a master's program in Christian addiction counseling for a college down in uh, Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm creating that. And then I'm doing a training program, a 7-part training program for the inner child for clinicians. So no, I don't. I know I'm a third of the way through. I would hope to have the book finished by October, and I would like to launch it early next year sometime. So we'll see.
we will look forward to that. And I just want to tag into what you just said. I talk all the time to people, and we really talk about not just stopping the behavior, but addressing the underlying issues. And that's what you're talking about, is the
Yeah,
underlying
absolutely.
issues. And unfortunately, too often it's just about stopping the behavior, and they don't heal from those wounds. And therefore, then it's like, well, okay, I'm going, bouncing from one acting out behavior to another, one maladaptive
Right,
coping
right.
mechanism to another, we're and missing out on the serenity and
Yeah,
peace that really healing provides. So
right.
really looking forward to your book.
Yeah, and the other aspect of that too is the fact that the partner, again, what she needs to go on or he needs to go on is just the fact that, oh, you're not doing that any longer? Okay, well, wait a second. You told me before you weren't doing it. So they need to see real substantial change in character and transformation of the heart. So anyway, that's coming 2021 sometime. So hey, so today what we're going to talk about is reconciliation. And to reconcile or not to reconcile. And what I want to really focus on, and I want to make sure I give us a lot of time for questions because we get a lot of them. And thank you, keep bringing them in. We want that. Um, what are the issues that prevent us to get to the point where a couple is ready to reconcile? And there's a few, and I want to start first with the betrayer, okay? First and foremost, a betrayer has to own his or her behavior. If they don't do that, there is going to be no reconciliation. And it's very interesting, especially when you look in the terms of pornography use. How many people come into my office trying to justify the idea that there's nothing wrong with pornography? Um, I could tell you a lot of things that are wrong with pornography, but the one thing that you need to focus on first and foremost is that it's very destructive to your partner because what it's doing is making them feel insecure. It's almost like you're looking for something different. You want something that they can't deliver. And therefore, they're feeling, again, rejected, worthless, or a lot of times it may be, oh, look what I saw on porn. Hey, I want you to do this with me. And now they're starting to feel objectified. And it's all sexualized, highly sexualized versus the emotional intimacy that it should be. So need to understand if you're looking at porn and your partner's objecting to it, as opposed to trying to state your case for why it's okay and why I should be doing it, spend a little bit more time trying to be curious to understand what is his or her pain point. Why are they troubled by the fact that you're doing it? And maybe if you see that it really does have substantial hurt that's involved, maybe that winds up moving you off it. So anyway, we need to own what we've done and what we're doing, and that's really important. The second one is accountability. If a betrayer does not have accountability, then it's going to be very difficult to bring us to reconciliation because, again, you're going off on your own. And, as I said before, the lone wolf usually fails. It is not a good place for us to be. We need that support team behind us. And I understand there are many men who are like, oh, I just don't want to do that. That troubled me. For me, that is not, an option. We need to have support groups. And if you're not going to be in a support group, then you're not doing justice to your recovery. Or have an accountability partner, somebody who's, again, you can check in, because let's face it, as you're going through the process, there's no cure. What it is we learn to manage the disorder. We manage it. So therefore, it's going to trouble you. It's going to bother you occasionally. Occasionally, you're going to get activated somehow, and you need to be able to have those things in place to be able to go to so that you can stay one step ahead. Having that accountability now also gives your partner a sense of security that, okay, if something goes wrong, you have a game plan. You have something that you can do that will help make me feel safe. So we're looking for that. The third point of why we would struggle to get accountability or I'm sorry, reconciliation is the person who has done the betraying doesn't understand why they do what they do. And when that happens, okay, two things. One, for those who are acting out in destructive sexual manner, what hope do you have for being able to get to a point where you can feel a level of confidence that I can manage this? If I don't know why I do what I do, then you know what? I'm probably destined to continue to do that. But also for the partner to give them an understanding to say, ooh, okay, I see what's going on here. All right, I can understand this is much different what you're dealing with, your brokenness. It's not so much about your desire for more sex or your desire for something different sexually. You're trying to, mask a brokenness that you have. And what that does, it gives great empathy. And that is a strong cornerstone to be able to get us down the path of reconciliation. So again, we need to understand why, and that's why the going deeper, how the inner child impacts your sexual addiction is all about that, helping you understand why you think, feel, and act the way you do. And not just in your behavior from a sexual standpoint, it's also in all kind of behaviors. The fact that, maybe you can't control your temper, okay? Or the fact that, no matter how much people want you to be somewhere at a certain time, you're just always running late. And to understand, okay, why am I like this? What goes on with that? So um, this is a really hard one. I mean, we're never going to get on the couch, the two of you. We're never going to get you on the couch if the person who's done the betraying cannot develop empathy. And what I mean by that is to see their partner's pain. It is a major struggle, at least for the men. And as I told you folks before, I deal exclusively with men. For the men I work with, a large majority of them, to to embrace and try to, as much as they can, they'll never feel all of it, but as much as they can, understand the depth of their partner's pain. Because if you can't do that, what you're going to do when she start grieving, again, I'm going to go back to the pronoun he and she, when she start grieving, you know, you're going to be one or two things. Either one, how do I shut this down? Okay. And I'm going to shut it down by either try to fix it, which you're not going to be able to fix it, or you're going to withdraw. And neither of those are good solutions for what we're trying to do here. You need to be able to understand the hurt, the extent. You know, it's really interesting to me. Again, having been involved all with this and having lived through this myself, and I realized, you know, about several years ago that we have tremendous power to hurt other people. But we don't realize that in many cases. We just don't realize, unless we're a sociopath, we just don't realize that. And so therefore we just go off doing what we want to do, what is going to satisfy us, and it becomes at the expense of someone else. And I tell people, especially the guys who come in who are single into my practice, and God bless them. They see a problem early. They want to do something about it. I mean, that's great. But the one thing I tell them, I go, you know what? If you know you're not going to put the work into this, if you're not really going to punch this thing in the face, then you know what? Do at least do the right thing. Don't drag somebody else into your mess. You know, stay single. You know, go do whatever you want to do. Not that I condone that behavior or attitude. I don't. But just don't bring somebody else into it. There's no need to. It is so selfish. Well, I don't want to be alone. Or maybe being married and having sex will resolve my problem. No, it's not. Not going to happen. Okay. There are many men who thought that way, way before you for centuries. It doesn't happen. So therefore, again, the idea of developing empathy, seeing the depth of their pain is really critical here. And one of the biggest issues we have is that, you know, guys start to get offended when the wrath is coming at them. And again, it's all grieving. And they're like, oh, I shouldn't be treated this way. You don't realize how much I've been working. I've been doing all my stuff. I look at my notebook and how much I filled it out and I've journaled and all that. You know, you should just be happy that I'm doing this and be quiet about it. No, it doesn't work that way, guys and gals. It doesn't work that way. You can't control their pain because they can't control their pain, at least not right now. That's why it's called trauma. That's why it's called trauma. So therefore, we have to be understanding of that and therefore be able to sit there and to assist as much as possible. We're not trying to help to relieve their trauma. All you're doing is you're there to say, I'm not going to run away from you anymore. Yeah, because that's what you did when you were into porn, when you were into an affair, when you go to the massage bar, you're running away from them. And that's what they feel. And they don't want you to do that again. So you have to be there to be able to say, okay, talk to me, let me do that. So unless that happens, we're going to have a big problem. Engaging in communication, and this is part of what we're just talking about. You need to be able to sit and allow her to talk about this. You know, I remember, and I think I might have shared this in one of the first shows that I did. I had a couple that came in for their first session. And so I asked her, I go, so tell me what's going on here. And she looked over at him and she goes, can I? And I was like, what is that? And he just like shrugged his shoulders. And I said to her, I go, what is that? He goes, well, he told me on Friday, I think it was like a Tuesday. He told me Friday, he goes, you got 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll talk about it. I'll answer any questions. But after that, I don't want to hear anything about it. You know, that's not healthy. They got divorced, as you can imagine. You need to be able to allow her to communicate. answer the question that she has to the best of your ability. And what I also tell guys is don't panic and make up stuff, because that's sometimes what they do. Because they're going to remember everything you tell them, okay, which is good, they should. But then you're going to come back to a question because then you panicked and you made something up. And then it's going to be, oh, you give it the right answer. And now it's like, I don't know what to believe. So you need to be able, and you know what this is really about? And this is part of what the new book will be about too, maturity. It's about emotional maturity, because the folks who engage in this, the folks who are the ones who are betraying, they are emotionally immature. And I know that sounds really harsh and tough, but that's what it is. It's emotional immaturity. You can be mature in so many other ways. You could have a lot of street smart, but when it comes to emotional connection, relationships, it's like, a 15-year-old in a 30-something-year-old body. And we need to change that. And that's part of what the growth process is beyond just treating the addiction. So you got to be able to stay there and not, again, allow your emotion to trump theirs. And that goes back to my next point, having patience. How many people are like, when is this going to be over? When is she going to move on, or he's going to move on? When are we going to stop with the question? When? As opposed to, hey, you know what? I dug this hole. She's in this hole with me. She doesn't deserve to be in this hole. I need to help her climb out of the hole. And the way you can do that is by not trying to pull her through. Because if you try to pull her through and you get on the couch together, I'm telling you, that is not going to be pretty. It's not. It's going to be what I call, use my language, a bitch fest. Because that's what it's going to be. Because she is not healed, she is not ready, and you're just going to get it. And there's going to be no reconciliation going on. She's still going to be doing her healing sitting there, and you're going to be like so frustrated, like we're not getting anywhere. Well, because you kicked the can down the road instead of allowing her to, to grieve and be patient. And I understand patience is hard. It's very, very difficult to be patient because you'll remember what life was like before. It was more simple. It was easier. There wasn't as much chaos. No, there wasn't, but there wasn't what really should have been there in the first place anyway, or we'd never be in the place that we're in right now. And the last thing about the betrayer and what they need to do in order to reconcile is what I just mentioned before at the beginning. And those are changes that go beyond behavior modification. Your spouse or partner need to be able to see more than just hearing, I'm not doing that. They need to see that, a person who is very inwardly focused is now outwardly focused. A person who lacked curiosity now is very curious. A person who didn't know how to identify and express emotion are now doing that. And that's just part of the 11 different things that I've identified. And it's through those changes that now they can say, ooh, you know what? Maybe there really is hope. If he or she has changed in these different areas, then maybe they're telling me the truth, because maybe ultimately they are maturing. They are now emotionally mature, and they know and understand that relationships are sometimes they're about sacrifice. And a lot of times those who are immature, we don't want to sacrifice. We just want what we want when we want it. So if none of those things happen from the side of the betrayer, you are not going to be in a good place to do reconciliation. And from the side of the betrayed, okay, there's issues there too. We see it often. We see those who've been betrayed who like, I don't want to grieve. I don't want to cry. I don't want to get angry. I don't want to do anything. Just shut it down. We're gonna pretend this never happened. We're just gonna move on. The problem is you can't pretend it never happened. You're just not going to be able to do that. It could be, there are going to be so many things out there, movies, names, other events that are going to trigger you. And by not doing that, by not grieving is healing. You've heard me say that before. When you grieve, you heal. You need to feel to heal. And if you're not going to feel that pain, you're not going to heal. And that goes to my next point. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to talk about it. I want to put it in the closet and let's move on. Now, your partner might be, ooh, this is good. I love this. Well, they're going to love it for a certain period of time because eventually, again, as I said, kicking the can down the road, this is all going to come back. Okay, it's coming out. And I don't know how it's going to come out, but it is, whether it's going to be passive aggressive or whether there's going to be some major trigger down the road where all of a sudden, there's an explosion. Or the kids are grown, they're gone, and all of a sudden you got your bag packed and you're heading out the door. It happens all the time for those folks who will not grieve it or discuss it. The other issue, a big issue that's going to help prevent that reconciliation is we see many times a person who's been betrayed also has previous past traumas. And what happens is the two blend together and the intensity level is astronomical. Now, I'm not telling you, oh, forget about that past trauma. That's not it. But what has to happen is dealing with both of those traumas, working them enough so that eventually what they do is they separate. You separate it. So now you can take the past trauma and put it in its proper place and then just deal with this one. Because this one is bad enough on its own. You don't need to be adding more garbage into it. So it's that part too. This is a big problem that happens. Doesn't happen often. I'm happy to say, but seeking revenge. If you're going to seek revenge, you're not going to get close to reconciliation. And there are people who've been betrayed who go out and have affairs, who get on, porn sites and start watching pornography, who go and start drinking heavily. None of it's good. Some people, the people who are really upset, they start turning the kids against the spouse. Again, you're taking a bad situation and you're just making it worse. And I understand the intensity of the pain that you're feeling that causes a lot of these actions, but that's why you need to be talking to somebody who's going to be able to help be a more reasonable voice in your time of pain here. And then the final thing is giving into the fear. There are a lot of people who have been betrayed. And again, fear is that common denominator. Okay. How do I know he won't or she won't do it again? How do I know this will last, the changes that last? It's that fear of the unknown. If you give into that fear, you're going to stand on the sidelines. You're going to stand on the sidelines while the game is playing, and you're not going to go back into the game. And that's what we call being stuck. And there are people who get stuck and just cannot move forward. They'd rather play it very safe. And those are the folks who wind up becoming more like roommates than anything else. The relationship never have an opportunity to truly blend, integrate into something that could be really powerful and could be really satisfying for both of them. So anyway, Tammy, that's all I got for you this week.
It's a lot. And I was thinking roommates, but often hostile roommates. It's not even, it isn't compatible roommates. I am, I've been in communication with a number of people again recently where one or the other is really stuck. And I think we'll see that with some of the questions that are presented too.
Okay.
So let's start with those and then we'll chat more, but great information. The one thing I did want to say too, is when you talked about the betrayer, often with porn addiction, the betrayer has a hard time owning that there's a betrayal because there was no physical contact. And so,
Absolutely.
but for the partners, it's devastating as well. I thought of that when we were talking about it.
You're
It
absolutely right
still
about
is,
that.
yeah,
Yep.
it still is a betrayal. Okay, so first question. Yesterday this is from a partner. I saw a movie and I got reminded of the betrayal. When I asked my spouse for support, he got angry and said, please, I need help from you. This morning, he just left without saying anything. I'm so sick of this behavior of punishing me and that he is the victim. He is so focused on his pain, but what pain? Pain that it didn't work out with this woman, pain that she hurt him, or what is the pain? He is not sorry. And then she added, this is all very noble and beautiful advice, but impossible if you're dealing with a pathological narcissist who gets injured so quickly and gets passive aggressive or ghost or ignoring. I tried to be helping the betrayer for 3 years now, and he still abandons me because he is a coward. Sorry, but this is how I see it. So,
Well, first and foremost, you don't have to apologize for anything because um, he's not doing what he needs to do to help you. For example, you're watching that movie and you get triggered. Actually, you know what? He should have probably picked up on whatever the scene was, which I'm sure he did, and said to you, if you were watching it together, and said, hey, put it on pause. Hey, you know what? Is this scene bothering you? Are you troubled by it? Because again, that goes to show somebody who I want you to heal. I want you to feel better. And I know that you're going to occasionally be triggered by things. And I'm okay with you being triggered by things. You know, that's not what you're telling us here. He's like, again, this guy, shut it down. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with it. This is your problem, or again, why are you doing this to me? You're trying the pain. What is the true pain? I can't tell you what the true pain is, but I know one pain that's there, and that's shame. A lot of shame. And therefore, when it comes up and it brings up, that shame factor, there's two things that'll happen with shame. Guys will become aggressive to shut it down, or they're going to withdraw to shut it down. So, him understanding what's going on there. Now, you've given him 3 years. 3 years you've been chasing this guy, looking for him to be empathetic, looking for him to be compassionate, looking for him to be understanding. And it's like, I have to say to you, what are you doing for yourself? Because you're right. He could be a narcissist. That might be what's going on, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you learning healthy coping mechanisms so that you can deal with this situation in a way that not got you so upset and so devastated and feeling like he's punishing you. For you to be empowered. You're not empowered right now. And I'm very sorry about that. You should be. You should be. He should be sitting here trying to empower you, and he's not. So my focus wouldn't be so much on him right now. I think my focus would be on you.
yeah, and I was thinking, 3 years of him not looking to do anything different. We talked a little bit ago about being stuck, and unfortunately, some people choose to be stuck. And worse than being on the sidelines, I mean, because like that's safe. If you're on the sidelines, you're not in the rumble, you're not going to get hurt, but you also aren't going to enjoy any of the benefits of that. So when I hear this, I hear him being stuck in the shame and playing the victim and pushing all the blame out on you rather than owning it. But he's also stuck in the misery. I mean, if he's truly not acting out, which, I have no idea, but if he's not acting out, then he doesn't have the comfort that escaping and numbing out into that brings. and he also hasn't learned any of the tools to have a healthy attached relationship with you in order to grow together and have support, et cetera. So like Eddie said, get support for you. I'm really glad you're here, but while we're really supportive of relationships moving forward, not everyone is supposed to move forward. And at some point, like Eddie said, when the couple that he described the story, from a few years ago, they didn't stay together. At some point, if he's not willing to do anything, then what is your safety? What is right for you? Looking at that, I would advise with somebody who's qualified to support you to unpack that and what it looks like. So.
And you can help them with that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Anytime people are looking for a qualified therapist, we look at everything from a prodependence lens. So not, we don't view partners as codependent or part of the problem or enabling or whatever. We understand that they're traumatized and they love a broken person. And gosh, we really want to help the broken person heal. But if they're not willing to do that, at some point, what's going to be right for you may be not being in the relationship anymore. I don't, again, that's not, our goal is always to help people heal individually and as a relationship. But okay, next question. What can help my SAPA husband understand the vital importance of having a qualified therapist? We are 2 years into recovery. He is seeing an LMFT that has helped him in some areas of self-help within the last year. However, due to some very red flags that I have witnessed personally from this therapist, such as one, telling him to Google what a disclosure is, my hair just set on fire. 2, telling husband that he would try to be there for him the day of disclosure, even though it was 4 months out. 3, mocking my boundaries. 4, no teaching of empathy or partner sensitivity. I refuse to complete the formal disclosure with him, and we are looking for someone qualified. I have a CSAT APSAT therapist, but he refuses to give him his therapist up because he doesn't want to be vulnerable and start over with someone new.
So what the key word in all of that? There's 2. Doesn't vulnerable. He doesn't want to be vulnerable. That says to me that all the work he's been doing hasn't really set in and touched and changed the heart. Because right now he's in a place where he feels comfortable. He's got a counselor who, hey, this is a good rapport. He understands me. He doesn't push me with things. He doesn't bring up my shame. I don't have to keep looking in the mirror at the pain that I caused. That's not healing. That is not recovery. Okay. And it's not like we sit here and we, put a guy in a chair and we shine the bright light on him and we beat him with a rubber hose. That's not what we do either. Okay. But the idea of being vulnerable should be one of the goals he's trying to achieve, because that means that he's being more emotionally engaging. And therefore, for you, I'm putting this clip in front of him and saying, hey, look, listen to this guy. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you have to give this other guy up. You don't have to give him up. You want to go see him? Great, go see him. But come somewhere else with me that we can explore deeper, that I don't have somebody mocking my boundaries. I mean, right there, that's the most terrifying part of that. Somebody's going, oh, well, she shouldn't be acting for this or that. Those boundaries are put there in place, again, to bring safety, a sense of security. So therefore, I would be, looking to say, hey, you know what? This is something that we need to do for us to move on. If we do not do this, we are not going to be able to move on in a healthy way. So therefore, keep your therapist, but let go and start this process. And then maybe if you feel comfortable with this therapist, you can kind of step aside for a little while and let them do the one-on-one work, if that's it. And maybe he moves away. Maybe once he sees that, oh, again, it's not somebody going to be beating him over the head and trying to shame him. It's going to be somebody there trying to remove his shame.
Yeah, there is so much in this, I mean, a disclosure. I mean, when Dr. Rob had his practice where he is working with clients directly, they would, from the moment they walked in the door till the time they did disclosure, was probably in the 2 to 4 months range.
Yeah,
The
right.
behavior would have stopped. The acting out behavior would have stopped. There would have been accountability, and there would have been disclosure. So that it's 2 years, and I'm with Eddie. I'm not sure that recovery is the right word. You've been on this journey since discovery for 2 years, but that it's been 2 years and you're still in the holding pattern on a formal disclosure with someone. And I wouldn't, me personally, I wouldn't do a formal disclosure with somebody who's not qualified to guide the process. It's
Hmm.
complicated. It's very healing. For those who do it with if it's set up properly, it's a foundation for moving forward. Done poorly, it's more traumatic, it's more problematic, and it just sets everything back more. But Dr. Rob, it's kind of funny because the guys at the Seeking Integrity Treatment Program the ones that have been there will warn when Dr. Rob is coming in, because he is, holding up that mirror, and it can be jarring for people. It can be scary, but he's really looking to help them go, if you're feeling like this with me, just can you imagine what your partner is feeling like? If you're lying to me about this, I bet you lie to your partner all the time. Can you imagine how that feels? That's the kind of work that is critical to do to move forward in addiction. Dr. Rob talks about this all the time. Doing addiction work is very different than if you're clinically depressed, if you had a loss, like your parent died and you just need, you need some support. Great. A general therapist is great and can be super helpful. But for addiction work, it's really a very different approach and a very different lens. So not having the right therapist just keeps you guys in this muck,
And you know what? Actually, it's unethical what that counselor's doing, because if
I agree.
he's not qualified, you're not trained in that area, then you shouldn't be, doing that. Like if that would be like somebody bringing a child to me who's dealing with some sort of, stress-related thing and saying, okay, you know what? Start doing play therapy. I don't know anything about play therapy, but what, I'm going to bring you into my practice just because I want a client? No, I'm sorry. Doesn't work that way.
I agree. Okay, so I'm wondering if you can help me understand the role of choice in sex addiction. D-Day was 8 months ago, and our formal disclosure was 2 months ago. It was absolutely devastating, and there was so much that I did not know. I'm struggling with some of the in-person sexual activity. There were times when a woman friend would try to initiate sexual activity with him and he would refuse. Nearly all of his acting out was with strangers because he didn't want to risk being discovered in his life. But there was a time when he was with someone we know. His ability to not cheat with some people during our relationship has me struggling. If he could say no to some people, but he did not say no to someone else, it feels like straight cheating in that situation rather than something that was compulsive and out of control. If you could choose and did sometimes choose otherwise, was it really a compulsion? And was it something beyond his control?
Yeah, Tammy, get out the book promotion.
Yeah,
You know what? The thing is here with this, okay? It's a great question. And this is why, it's part of the reason why I wrote that first book, Going Deeper, how the inner child impacts your sexual addiction. There are times when there's something that happens, an event that activates his inner child. And what it is, everybody has these core emotional triggers. They're anywhere between 5 and 8. There are things that will set you off. It's like, I feel disrespected, or I feel like I'm a failure. There are many of them. And what happens is when that happens and it activates your child, the intensity of the pain you're starting to feel is so overwhelming, and the kid wants one thing, he wants comfort, and he gets you to run away. And that's why in those circumstances, he's quicker to say yeah. Then in other times when he's saying no, it's probably most likely because there have been no core emotional trigger that is activating the kid. The kid's rather dormant. However, there's another component, and that is when we're drained. If we're drained mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, bad things will happen because what we're looking for is stimulation, and nothing more stimulating than sex. So it could be at these different times he meets these people and he is feeling somewhat depleted. The kid is now saying, hey, I need an adrenaline rush, and therefore he runs. I would strongly recommend you go get the book and read it because it will give you lots of insight and answers into your partner's problems and actually help him. And that's why it's so important. Like you said, how come I act out sometimes and other times I don't? That doesn't make any sense. It will make sense, I promise you.
Well, and I was thinking too, there's very different typologies. The type of person who is, with strangers, away from home, that type of behavior is very different than the person who is with friends and family in the house, in the bed, and all of that. But it would be interesting, like you're talking about, Eddie, if the one person, that you perceive cheating, if there was something more vulnerable going on. Often it's around the birth of a child or some other highly stressful thing. But one analogy I thought of quickly was, as an alcoholic, even if an alcoholic can work all day and not drink until after the end of the job, because there's reasons, but there's also a plan for future. So but occasionally, something might happen, whether it's a business lunch or whatever, and that, there's an opportunity to drink during the day. Bad example probably, but just because, it isn't necessarily that the compulsion is like, oh, I've got to do this right now, because otherwise, he would have, left you at breakfast time and, run off and had sex with somebody. It's complicated. And addiction is real. Please look at the American Society for Addiction Medicine. It talks about, addiction globally, the behavior, process addictions, as well as chemical addictions. It's a chronic condition. But, I go back to the brain is hijacked and we make really poor choices thinking they're great choices, but it really is that discomfort, the inability to tolerate whatever is going on. So the plan of, even if when I was drinking, even if I wasn't drinking, I had the plan of when I was going to drink next. I knew, and that was in the back of my mind, so I knew I had a plan and I could think about that, no matter how uncomfortable I was. That's just one example. So, okay. So the person that we started with, he is gone, and I know I will be having extreme heavy emotions and tension, anxiety, extreme heartbeats. I want to go dig deeper into these feelings. What are they trying to tell me? How can I understand my own body feelings more? I know I have attachment wounds myself, understandably. I have done a lot of inner work myself. How do these emotions still seem so extreme?
Well, they're extreme because, again, you know what? You just had a change of life. Okay, if the person who was there is no longer there. I have to go get this. I'm sorry. Hold
Is it
on
your
one
phone? I
second.
hope.
Yeah, I think so. Hold
Oh,
on.
good. Okay.
Hello?
So, hey,
Yeah.
mute. I'm gonna mute. Okay. So what I was thinking while while I was reading this is grief too. Oh my gosh. And grief is a body reaction. So doing mindfulness exercises, working with somebody, a trauma specialist. So my personal therapist, did EMDR with me on online, the other day when I was meeting with her, and, really helpful. And she gave me tools. I can continue to do that myself. So there are techniques. I haven't tried the Calm app yet. I'm not endorsing anything, but it's fascinating to me. So any of those things that will give you some soothing and caring, but at some point, it really is, you have to do the grief work, and that will be a body experience. You will feel it. It will not be pleasant, but you can get support. You can talk to people. Be on the betrayed partner group that is on at 12:30 today Pacific time. You know, anything that will support you in the space you're in. You know, don't try to shove the emotions up on the closet shelf. You have to experience it, but you can get support to be able to tolerate it differently. So
There's a
are you
first for
back?
everything. Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
There's a first for everything, isn't there? So found my
it
phone
this
though.
Oh, that's good. They
There
didn't
she
go to Florida without you.
bringing it back. Just here, also there's a wonderful book, The Body Keeps Score. I would highly recommend that to you because it talks a lot about how our emotions play havoc with the rest of our body. So something you might want to look at.
Yeah, that's by Bessel van der Kolk. I'm putting it in the chat. So
Good.
yeah. Okay. Well, and speaking of that, I have talked to so many betrayed partners who have talked about the physical. I mean, like they'll have chronic physical ailments, and it's the chronic PTSD. It's they are constantly dealing with that stress level, and it comes out in many different forms. So
Right.
okay, so the next question. My fiance and I are going through a similar situation. I have been addicted for over 20 years. I've always avoided relationships, and as soon as they get close, I cut it off. However, my current situation is much different. I have released full disclosure with my partner, and during this process asked the same in return. She bravely told me that she has been romantic with someone else on 2 separate occasions and was sleeping with one of the people the first 3 months we were together. Then later, at a time in our life when I thought we were really melding. However, now I realize that that was my addiction telling me I was okay. We have concluded that she was sexually assaulted by this man on the second occasion, and I know I need support. I need to support her. I keep having irrational feelings about how this was my fault and my addiction has brought this on. I want to get past this and make her feel more supported while we work on this together.
All right. Yeah. So therefore, what we got to be doing, we got to be working on again your shame and your guilt, because again, her hurt is secondary. Because right now you're focused more on, oh my gosh, I failed her, and that is not going to help either of you to understand that. Yeah, okay, maybe there was a component of your addiction, perhaps, but you know what? To look at saying, okay, where are we going now? Okay, I feel that I've let her down. I feel that my addiction got her into a bad place. What's reality? Well, reality is I'm not in my addiction right now. The reality is I am changing. I am being honest and open and vulnerable for the first time with somebody. And therefore, I can now sit here with more confidence and be able to sit there with her and say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on how I feel and that feelings that I, again, hurt you. Instead, I'm going to focus on your pain. I'm going to be here to support you, because this is what the new guy does. He did with the old guy who had the addiction that she somehow got caught up in stuff. That's the old guy. This is the new guy. And the new guy is now part of this whole idea of, hey, you know what? We're there for each other. And I'm here for you. And therefore, that's the way I move forward.
So the next part of this is, what are some tips for betrayed partners that are out of touch with their anger or betrayal? I've been self-helping, not enough income for therapy until recently, for 2 years in response to my partner's betrayal and addiction. And now that he's showing up in the way that I've been requesting, I feel out of touch with the emotions of the original betrayals. I feel extremely numbed out and struggle to feel emotional in response to the topics we discuss now. How do I get back in contact with my emotions after shutting them down or facing emotions on my own for so long?
Okay. Yeah, I think first and foremost, one, the fact that you now have some income that you can be sitting with someone to be able to help you with that, that's great. Two, one of the best things you can do is get out a pen or a pencil, get down some paper, and just start journaling. every day. Just start journaling what's going on, how you feeling. The other thing I would really try to focus on is more of a gratitude list. What should I be grateful for? What are the things in my life that, you know what, the blessings that I have here? And that hopefully maybe gets you out of the numb stage and brings you back to a stage where it's like, oh, okay, you know what, there's positive in my life. And then finally, the last thing is what I've mentioned several times already, is taking these feelings that you're having, okay, and putting them to truth. What is reality? Okay, because I'm so out of touch. He's doing what I asked him to do. He's now there. He's showing up in a way that I never thought he was going to show up. But my guess is there's the fear, will this continue? Will he be consistent moving forward? And that is just something that takes place over time as he continues to show you that. Therefore, then you have more and more confidence in it. So,
And I was thinking some body work because what I find for myself is I
no.
was more negative in particularly my gut. That's me. But or shoulders. If I'm wearing my shoulders as earrings, as one person said, it's I'm not in a good space. So I've had to. And there are lots of free guided meditations that will take you through the whole process. But I bet you'll start feeling where there's pockets of emotions that are jumbled up,
Yeah.
and getting in touch with that. But I agree with Eddie, working with somebody. Like I said, I just shared while you were doing your phone thing, I did EMDR with my therapist, and like I didn't even know. And all of a sudden I had tears running down my eyes, and
Right.
so there was something stored up. And this is just a couple weeks ago, or whenever last
Hmm.
week. But, it was like one of those where, like there's stuff that gets stored within me. And for me, doing some body work, because I can get really clueless about that, pushing it all away and not thinking about, any of
Mm-hmm.
that. But as soon as I have to start tapping into that, that's when I get in touch with
All right.
the feelings.
You know what another good thing is? Yoga. Yoga is excellent.
I bet I'm so unstretchy that is a foreign concept for me. So
You and me both. But it is something that's very, very valuable. So I would highly encourage, and even if you can't afford to go to a yoga class, again, there are so many things available on YouTube that you can watch. Start with the beginner stage and work yourself up, but see if you could spend 20 minutes a day just there by yourself, focusing, because it's amazing, as Tammy said, once you start to get the body, aligned with the mind, now all of a sudden our emotional window widens again. Yours got shut. And now what we need to do is try to expand out on it. And that's part of what the journaling is, opening up those neural pathways that have been, closed or clogged, and just giving you a chance to really start to feel again.
well, and you're here and you're willing. I love that, because, that's the first step, is just being willing, because it's going to feel uncomfortable, as you start tapping into things that you've really shut down. So, and explore all, try lots of different things. And like Eddie said, there's a zillion different things on YouTube. Try bunches of different things and see what resonates. So we have a question in the chat. So I'm going to read this
Okay.
one. As an addict, can your patterns change with circumstances, but ultimately they will come back if you don't do the work correctly? For a long time, I cut out acting out with prostitutes and massage parlors while in a relationship, but porn became the dominant issue until something came up. Am I doomed to repeat without help?
Two things. One, uh, yes, if you don't do the work the right way, again, this is my approach, and the reason I push it is because it works. And that is understanding, why do I do what I do? And if you get to that core, again, you're going to have power to make the right decision. The other thing, however, though, is you don't get to a point where you're cured. Recovery is ongoing. That doesn't mean, oh, I need to be reading books every week about things. But you know what? You really should be in a support group on a regular basis. Okay? You should have that accountability partner that you can reach out to. When you do start to see, oh, wow, you know what? I feel like I'm being pushed or driven back into this world. I haven't acted out yet, but there's a lot of temptation. That's when it's like, okay, take action. Have a plan in place so that you're staying one step ahead. So no, you are not doomed to be in this forever, but you do have to, one, recognize what are the core emotional triggers that will wind up driving you to do what you do, and two, what are the things I'm putting in place so that I can make sure that I always have a consistency of recovery of my life. I just had a client who, about a month ago, announced to me that he had relapsed looking at porn over 2.5 years. And what happened is this whole COVID thing came. He started working at home. He was alone. He started feeling disconnected from people, all of that kind of stuff. And instead of reaching out, and before he got into the spot, he was reaching out to a lot of people. There were so many people who were in his life, and that's what allowed him to really continue. But once he shut that off, and he just started. And so now we're going back to the beginning to understand how important structure and self-care is.
And I was thinking, I don't know what your circle plan is, but for sex addicts, porn is typically on the inner circle because that is a problem, and it's always keeping your brain on that drip of dopamine. And so just because it isn't the acting out physically with prostitutes and massage parlors, it's still the fantasy, it's still keeping that dopamine going. So, and I tell people, whether it's so you stop watching porn but now you're eating a chocolate cake every night, you're still doing the same thing, and you're attending
Right.
poorly into to your needs, rather than getting the support to do things differently. So in I've shared this before, but the former president of ASAM, American Society of Addiction Medicine, I was in a meeting with him, and he has a very complicated name. I'll never get it right, but I will always remember, he said this in the meeting. He said, there is no S in addiction. Addiction is addiction. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, that's so true, because it doesn't matter which form it comes out in. It's still a problem. We're still using a maladaptive way of dealing with life. So
Yeah.
doing the work, going deeper so that we can get in touch with our emotions, our vulnerabilities, and heal so that we can not just keep going on a different, acting out method is what really brings healing and serenity. So
Right. Well, I think we answered all our questions. If I'm
we
not,
did.
all right, that's
Yes.
good.
And you got your phone back. It's all
I
good.
did
So
get my phone. People, I apologize. I'm so sorry for
no, no,
that.
no. This is the real life. Our
But
dogs
but
bark. Our, yeah.
these people were heading down to Florida, and she hadn't even looked in her purse yet. So I didn't need my phone
So
down there. I needed here. So
yes.
again, thank you for bearing with me. I
Thank
greatly
you,
appreciate it. I
Eddie.
hope you got a
Really
lot of stuff out
appreciate
of it.
it. You're gonna be very busy until I see you next month. So,
Yes.
and if for those of you that are just joining for the first time with Eddie's, you can watch the previously recorded great information, on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com under resources.
Mhm.
You'll see previous videos. And Troy Love will be here next week.
Oh,
And yeah, he does it. Yeah, like you guys are.
good job.
It's so great to have the two of
Oh,
you
can
because
I
it's
let me
please.
one thing for you folks, okay, who are still here. If you have any sort of ideas of what you'd like this show to talk about and stuff, again, I have a bunch still in the can. But if you have something that you think, please reach out to Tammy and send her an email, and she'll pass that on to me,
I
and
will do that.
I'll look into that. Okay.
Yeah, Tammy, Tami at seekingintegrity.com. So thank you all. Thank you, Eddie.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.
Next time.